Share my screen. Yes. And we will start from the beginning. Okay. There are some things that we used to have right now as the remote events. Something like, yeah, please unmute yourself. If you want to say something, just wave. I'm always watching the icons of the people just to see if they, they open the mouth to say something, or they just get in the oxygen in their lungs. And I feel like, okay, someone wants to say something. This is the level of sensitivity you as a speaker or you as a host are starting to have because people are participating online. I think it's amazing. Yes, I can hear you all probably. You can hear me, you can see me, and we are recording. That is great. For today, it's a kind of special event. Again, I would say the most value of this event is going to be that lots of people can watch it later. And I invited, I believe, those people who knows everything about being remote. For example, GitLab, this is the company that's actually was one of the first one to do that. And I think Miro is the company that advocates for being productive remote. I think this is the product that helped lots of people to ease the pain of the working remote. And Slack was also one of the pioneers who was helping to engage online and keep the communication up and running, and actually just to stay connected with your colleagues and everyone. And of course, I also wonder, Ivan, he's from a company called Flo Health, and I really wonder how the remote work also influence on people who really can use the online advice. It's something that's, I think that's lots of things that we thought never can be done online, now done online easily. So that's the short agenda for today. And I squeezed all the panelists in one slide. So yeah, I think I haven't forgot anyone. So and that's the people that we have today. And I have a couple of announcements that I will leave to the end of the event. Some things that Slack managed to do this year, and Slack community as well. Some small achievements. And I will probably start with the introduction and of the people who are joined us today, and then I will start choosing the questions. So how it would work. I have the questions addressed personally to someone, for example, to Mike, like, hey, Mike, how do you do this and that? And some of the questions that are applicable for everyone. So just bear with me. You can keep your microphone switch on. So I don't mind, because it's a discussion. So we'll try, of course, not to interrupt each other all the time. But I think it's just, let's exchange some ideas. Let's brainstorm something that people from the community are really curious about. That's the plan. So the first person that I reached out when I was thinking about remote was Nadia. Nadia, can I start with you? Just a short introduction, who you are, what you do, and where are you right now?
Hi, everyone. Super happy to be here today. Yes, currently I'm working at GitLab. I'm taking the position of product design manager. GitLab is a remote first company. So GitLab was never intended to be any other way than remote. So we are really, really famous for, I guess, a lot of remote practices. And I think we're an expert in this field. So happy to be here. Happy to have Pedro as well joining me. He'll do his introduction later. Located in Amsterdam, I'm born in Ukraine, so I can understand definitely Russian. That's actually my native language. And excited to be answering the questions and sharing my experience, but also learning from others. Thanks, Ella.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today as well. So Pedro, thank you for joining last minute, as you said, so just jumping from the bat to the conversation. So if you can introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, sure. So as Nadia said, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really happy to be here and hearing and learning from other people around the world what it's like to work remotely. So I work at GitLab. I've been at GitLab for over 4 years now, and as Nadia said, always remote from the beginning. An all remote company. We don't have any offices. We had one just to deliver mail in San Francisco, but I think we eventually got rid of that as well. Everyone works wherever they want and whenever they want. We try to work asynchronously as well. And it's been an amazing journey. GitLab is my first and only remote job so far. Before that, I worked in an office, but had some freelancing work where I practiced a little bit of what it's like to work remotely, but it's not exactly the same thing when everyone is remote, and especially across time zones. So it's been amazing, and I'm happy to share what I learned in the meantime. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We can actually compare how long you've been remote. So I think my record is 7 years. I don't know if anyone can beat me on this one. So but I wonder if possible. So the next person that I reached out to support me on this kind of project was Mike. Mike, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. And again, yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm Mike. I'm engineering manager at Miro. I joined Miro a year ago to help build the hub in Amsterdam. But quite quickly after that, we went fully remote as well, everybody. Before that, we've been like distributed company for like some time, but never like truly remote. And yeah, but we have learned some things along the way. So yeah, I'm happy to share them and also learn new stuff from you guys.
Yeah, thanks. That's super awesome. Yes, Alena.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm also from Miro, so we have a big crowd today from Miro. We are not actually a remote company. So we have offices, but currently we are working remote, but we are definitely the tool which empower team to collaborate remotely. And this is an interesting question that I'm telling other companies that we are not a remote company. They don't believe me. Like they are telling me like, you are visual collaboration for remote teams, but you are not remote. This is strange. And yeah, this is something maybe we need to work on. But I'm very interested and curious to see about the GitLab and how you work remotely, because I'm also trying to understand, like for me personally, working remotely, totally remotely, with no office and no possibility to like come to some place and hug people, touch people, I don't know, smell people, like somehow,
okay, stop.
yeah, some physical, I don't know, activity. I couldn't imagine myself like being totally remote. So it's so interesting to hear the experience being like this kind of company.
Super. Natalie, she also jumped in last moments, I would say. Natalie, could you please introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm Natalie, and I'm running marketing programs in Miro. We work together with Alena in one team. And I work here at Miro, previously real-time board, for more than 5 years. And I remember the times when we had one office, then when we transitioned to distributed, and now we experience remote collaboration. So all possible experiences, I had this, and I would say as any change, as any challenge, this is not always easy, but there is nothing impossible. And I would say changing something in the processes is more of an opportunity rather than a challenge. So I'm really excited to share what we learned and curious to hear the experience of others.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Ivan from Flo Health.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm a tech lead at Flo Health, the company that develops mobile application for women. And my main focus is quality and test automation. And that was only half a year ago when the company started working remotely. So that's something new experience for me. And nowadays we have a set of rules, guidelines called Remote Handbook that I can share the ideas from that handbook later during today's webinar.
Thank you so much. That's super awesome. I think it will be very helpful. And guys, I just started to think like, hey, should we compare the users, right? So how many users we have at the GitLab?
Ooh, Petra, you have any idea? Users?
Oh, I thought it was, sorry, I thought for a moment I thought it was here in the panel how many people used GitLab. Poof.
It's probably uncountable. I know that we have more than 100,000 customers, like companies, isn't that, Petra?
Yeah, I think it's in the order of millions, but it's very difficult to count because some people install GitLab on premises in their servers, and they don't report back because it's behind a firewall or something. So we can't really be sure, but it's from the ones we can count, it's I think over 6 million. I talked with someone yesterday about that, and it's over 6 million people using GitLab.
Yeah, but I think that registered, there are like more millions registered, and just how it's registered is usually how developers do it, right? So the new tool appears. I know that everyone has the GitLab and then the second, for example, GitHub accounts. And I believe that for Miro, we have already close to 9 millions, right, guys?
9 million. If I'm not mistaken, on distributed, we presented 9 millions.
Okay, then, and Ivan, how many users you have for your app?
Overall, we have like more than 100 million installations. Well, it's mostly like users, and on the monthly basis, we have like 35 million users.
Okay, wow, that's awesome. Okay, so now, yeah, okay, so we know who get all the users. Okay, so guys, we can start with the questions that I got from the audience. Actually, some of them, as I mentioned, are personal, some of them are more general. So I will start with the one that is about the personal growth. I think it's one of the questions that's really concerned a lot of people, and especially if you're like managing the team. How do you make sure that you're really taking care of someone's personal growth when you don't see the person? Like imagine when we were in the office, we were always like seeing, hey, person is in a good mood, is in a bad mood, sharing some kind of, concerns about the future, about the career. So right now you don't hear this noise anymore. So how do you make sure that you understand if the person is in the right path of the professional growth, let's say like that. I would like to start with Mike, if Mike is okay with that, because that's one of the questions that were addressed to the team leaders.
Right, yeah, sure. I'll try to share my opinion on that. First thing, I guess, well, there's like obvious answers, like having like one-on-ones and all that, right? And when we gone remote, I guess that will become even like more important. And there is you need like just like to listen and to talk more. And you should not, I would say, you should not like spend your like any of your one-on-ones on like like status reports or like any like project management type of things, because well, you might it's easier to upload it for like synchronous communication and all that. And during one-on-ones, you need like to listen and to detect any like signals and like discuss it. And also we at Miro, we have engagement surveys, which we had before even like going remote, and now they start to help us, I guess, even more to give some insights about like the how our teammates like feel about like engagement, how their well-being and all that. And you can take that as a starting point for like any investigation, well, not investigation, but like further discussions with your reports. So yeah, well, no silver bullets there, just like, well, talk more and listen and like be empathetic about the situation, because right now many people they might be like in challenging environment because we're forced to be remote, right? Not everybody like that, and not everybody have like proper like home office setup. So yeah, you need to take that all into account.
Yeah, thank you so much. Some valid points in there. Like, for example, detect the signals, right? So you can see if the person also like, answering you in the way that you can feel there is something wrong is going on. Maybe you have to spend more time. But I also see that it's hard to keep track on some personal or like some future planning on one-on-ones, because you all the time kind of slipping into the discuss the job with some very important moments. So that's for sure. And what I've noticed also that people started to increase the time for the one-on-ones. So it's also kind of helping a little bit. So Nadia, do you have any experience with that as well?
Of course, I actually agree with what both of you said, but I would actually answer this in two parts. I think the responsibility falls on the manager, but also on the person itself. And I think those two are equally important because the remote work really requires you to manage your own time, even more than in the collocated environment, and be self-motivated and be self-organized. You are the responsible one for your growth and for your kind of happiness to a big extent here as well. From the management side, as a leader on the team, I try to watch, like you said, Ala, for those signals. I think it's very important for us to track who maybe have gone quiet, who is maybe not responding to the messages, or who is maybe quiet during the sessions, like not speaking up, or trying to catch those signals. And it's of course a bit harder than in real life, but this is why the empathy is such important skill for a remote manager, I believe.
That's totally true. I totally agree. Very, very valid points. And again, remote work, as I remember it 7 years ago, it was like I was grabbing my computer, going in the Rex Museum and just, sitting there, drinking coffee and working from there. So right now, it's actually working from home most of the time. So it's very different. So I became very close to everyone who is talking to me over the camera. You can see, I don't have cats or dogs, but you can hear the doorbell, you can hear some noise and everything. So you kind of guys all invited into my house right now. So it's how it feels, a little bit different, right? Another question that I have is about implementing new processes. So I would like to ask first Ivan about it. What was the question from the audience? There is a challenge to start new processes, especially technical processes, when you never did it before. And what do you do to help the new processes to be implemented in the company when everything is remote?
You mean processes that, what kind? Can you clarify?
Technical, for example, you implementing the new tool. Let's say now you're going to do, I will say probably a nonsense, but yeah, for the unit test, you're going to use this one instead of that one. So, or for example, you did the Unity, the automation with Java, but you decided, hey, let's go on Python. And crazy idea, but if it would be the case, the new process, the new language. So okay. How do you make sure to do it remote?
So in our company, we have spaces. It's like tribes in Spotify, or I don't know what's the name in other companies. So the group of people who work on the same platform, like iOS developers, Android developers, QA guys, and so on. And those spaces, they have regular meetings. It might be weekly, it might be once or twice a month, or so on. So whenever you have idea, you want to change anything, you can join this meeting. You can suggest any idea you have, and you have some time to discuss it, to provide your idea, discuss with the guys, and you can vote. You can provide your ideas, why, what's the profit of your changes. And if you have any, if this idea finds the, what do you call it? Well, if a lot of people think that it makes to do that, then yes, it will be implemented. So the idea is to find, to just join the meeting, to provide the idea, provide the benefits, and discuss it with the guys who, with stakeholders.
Okay, but is it anyhow different from if you do that in person?
I guess now the only difference is that when you do it remotely, those meetings are conducted using Zoom, using Google Meet. So that's the only difference.
Okay, no, it's not that much. Mike, it's the same for you, right? Because you also implemented the technical challenges, technical, I don't know, new processes, new tools. Feels the same?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that something changed like drastically when we gone remote, because all those like discussions, I believe they cannot be done just like in a synchronous meeting during, I know, like an hour or two, right? That's like more like a synchronous process when you like gather like inputs, like I know, thinking about like long-term consequences, and like do the kind of thought through like discussion. It could take like, well, several like days, right? So when we gone remote, that's like the same thing. We have like our like technical designs reviews. We have some process how we discuss things, and then kind of spread it across the company. So yeah, nothing changed much there.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. You would like to add something? Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, to add to this question, because the person asked, and maybe I would suggest to read typical articles for change management. So for change management, you have a very specific framework. Like if you'd like to implement a change in a company, and this is it could be an operational change or any kind of change, you need to first like briefly to have an executive sponsor. So the person who actually will approve this change. And to have his or her buy-in for the change. And usually you're building a simple or maybe more complicated business case, why this change is required. And then you have a buy-in from the executive sponsor. Then you are trying to find your ambassadors locally in the teams. And then you have enough of them. You can drive the change in the teams. And usually, it's very funny, but in general, this is very typical to any kind of industry, any kind of change. People are behaving more or less typically. And if this person will read a simple, even business-oriented article, he or she will see the specific expected type of behavior and how to handle this behavior in a proper way to drive the change.
It's so interesting. I actually read a couple of books of change management, but the way that you explained, please recommend me the book that you read, because I definitely read something different. Yeah, and actually, while you're here, so Alina, I have a question for you from the freelancers. They're asking about how entrepreneurs can strive in a remote setup. So if you're an entrepreneur, so can you benefit from working remote?
That's for me, yes? Question, yeah, okay. Yeah, I recently had a conversation with entrepreneurs, like startup founders who are currently in one of the accelerators. And we spoke about Miro and how to manage everything. So the biggest struggle right now, as I see it, is actually structuring the information and keeping information in one place. You have a lot of tools, and definitely maybe everybody is starting from Google. What I noticed, everybody is starting from Google Docs. Then in Google Docs, it's not very convenient to work with the text. They are switching to Notion. This is the second step, or Coda. In Notion and Coda, they are trying to collaborate, but it's also not like totally perfect to work and collaborate, brainstorm, ideate in Notion or Coda. Then they are adding some whiteboard. I introduced Miro. The typical starting point is stickers, like simulating like a normal work environment. Then you have a piece of paper, a lot of stickers. Then mind mapping, maybe this is the second step for entrepreneurs to work on the ideas, because usually, so this structuring your information and collaborating, a lot of different tools, which will definitely be useful for your specific company. But I think Notion and Miro, they are like, and Zoom, this is like three major tools. Sometimes Airtables, if you need it, Typeform for sure, like Zapier, a lot of like additional tools to this part. Yeah, but definitely Zoom, Notion, or Coda and Miro. This is the suite for entrepreneurs to collaborate.
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, about the engagement, I also wanted to add something. For example,
do you mind if I add something?
Yes, of course. No, please go ahead.
So one small thing first. Would you mind stop sharing your screen? So I don't think the recording will show people's faces as long as you have it on.
Share. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, the small thing. But what I wanted to add was two things. So one of them, I think, is it really depends on the size of your company. But for a large company, it works better in terms of remote is if you start small with just one team and trying to change processes and see if it works in that team, and then try to expand to other teams instead of saying, hey, now that we're remote, we're all going to do this at the same time, because it will be more difficult to gather feedback and improve on things because now you have a bigger surface area for that feedback and for those changes. But one thing that I think is specific to remote work that we apply a lot at GitLab is multi-modal communication, which is basically if we're announcing something that people must do, or a new change, or something that is happening, we try to apply multiple channels of communication for that change, because we don't rely only on Slack, because there are so many Slack messages and that might slip. So depending on the importance and impact of the change, sometimes it's just like a really brief Slack message. Sometimes it's a Slack message plus an email. Although we rarely use email. Again, we only use it for really important things. Everything else we use GitLab or Slack. And sometimes we even go a step further and maybe create a video with a really quick walkthrough through the process or the change or whatever it is, so that people can watch the video and get all of that knowledge without having to read something that is really long. So it's trying to adapt. I think that's the key to remote work, really, is communication and adapting your communication style depending on who is the audience and what is the impact of the communication and what is the message you're communicating. And to that, I think our multimodal communication is really great, because I, for example, I prefer to read instead of watch a video. Other people prefer to watch a video with someone's face, like describing and maybe going through some slides. So it really depends. And so we're more able to provide the communication in a way that people understand.
Yeah, that's amazing points. Sorry, please go ahead. It's a good topic.
Can I also add on Pedro's point?
Yes.
I really liked your approach, and I think especially meaning that the size of the companies can really differ. It's important to come to this multi-channel communication process through an agreement, which is more or less common practice for larger companies, because you need to scale the practices, you need to document things. But for smaller startups, it's usually less formal. When they're in one office, it's usually just small chats. But when you're remote, you need to generate this agreement and shared understanding on the way. Do we follow this multi-communication process or not? Where do we communicate things? When do we get in touch? Do we have like work and non-work hours, and so on and so on? I think this is really important. And on top of that, we've been talking a lot about, I would say, channels, tools, and processes. And I also think that it's really, really important for entrepreneurs in remote setup to get together with either teams or maybe some experts community really often to kind of review and maybe adjust the strategy, because it's really important to understand the situation and to be agile, to stay agile, and always be ready to change the plans because the situation is changing dramatically. And when you are remote, it's just difficult to stay aligned on this and to get all the insights in time.
So very valid points, very interesting. So I was trying to make some notes as well and think about it at the same time, because multi channel model, this is really it's a great idea, and it's something that we also try implement at Miro as well. Recently we added the engineering blog to the website, so that's it's something that actually attracts a lot of attention. So especially engineers, they like to read, and they ask the questions about it. Oh, I have heard or I read about it. So this is something that I hear a lot from the candidates, because yeah, at the end of the day, I'm a technical recruiter, so I'm asking, hey, what you heard about us? So but one of the challenges, for example, podcasts, it's not working very well, to be honest. I love podcasts myself, so I listen to them every day. But when I did podcasts on the technical topics, I had only two listeners, my husband and my mom. So I thought, like, okay, so I will do something about it later. But what recently, I've got some research as well, and recently found out that newsletters is one of the most preferred way of receiving the information. Newsletters that includes what podcast to listen, what video to watch, and what articles to read. And people then choose what they like, and I'm waiting for the statistics to see what they're picking up more, like podcasts or videos, or reading the articles. As soon as I have this information, guys, I will be happy to share with you. And another question that will be addressed to everyone, so I'm going to ask everyone one by one. It's an interesting statistics. I love the data, and I think that's it's very important to follow the data. And recently, 83% of employees who started to work remote because they had to, they requested professional help of psychologists, and they shared the concern that they all the time felt that they need to reply immediately on the notifications that they're receiving. So people became so overwhelmed with the notifications. So guys, I would like to ask you personal, like how do you handle notifications, every one of you? So I will start with Pedro, because you're from my left side. So
okay. Yeah, so notifications. So I think you need to have a shared understanding and expectation of response times across the company, and what each channel of communication, what is the expected response time? Like, do we expect a faster response on Slack versus email versus, you know, other channels and tools that you use to communicate? So it really depends on the company itself. At GitLab, we try to, so we basically, the whole premise, and it's really easy for us to scale and for everyone to understand, is don't expect someone else to be online at the same time, right? Even if they are, don't expect them to be, work and communicate with them as though they are not online, and that they will reply to you like 1 hour later, 2 hours later, 4 hours later, and so on. And sometimes you get to reply earlier, which is great. But so this allows us to be working at multiple things at the same time without having to wait for someone to unblock something. So this requires also a change in how you plan or delegate or assign responsibilities to people. Because if someone has responsibilities and their work is just one task, and if they can't do that, they go and watch YouTube videos, that doesn't work. So you have to also to change how people work. Regarding the personal side of notifications and anxiety. So again, having a shared understanding across the company is saying, don't expect a reply. And the first thing that I do is I don't have notifications on my mobile phone. And I mean, I don't have any notifications at all. I only check the things when I want. And so that also creates a sense for other people that I only check when I want, basically. So if you really want my attention, I think there's a button in Slack that you can like push through the message and notifications that I get on my mobile phone. But yeah, I don't check notifications, and I don't think anyone in the company does that. And for example, yesterday, we were discussing something that was like very passionate conversation in Slack, and a lot of people were being involved, like over 20 people in the same thread, all chatting. And someone actually said that it was beginning to be very stressful because he was getting a lot of notifications and it was difficult to parse all of the conversation. So we should make an effort to split the conversation into other places so that we can discuss things more calmly, or maybe a call or something like that. So yeah, I think the first step is setting up the expectations for everyone in the company about what is expected. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Actually, it's like what I like the change that was made this year as well. You can put the status with a nice emoji. So it has emoji with your cat walking on your computer, or you're walking the dog, or you're away. So that's also the way that I use it effectively. I put notifications on Slack, like my status. But I'm actually overwhelmed by the notifications, and I have it everywhere on my phone, my iPad, everywhere. So Nadia, how do you make sure that you're not missing notifications? Like personally, what do you do for yourself?
Actually, some of my team members, they are not even appearing on Slack until the noon. This is their focus time. They mark it as that in the calendar and like, hey, I am aware that, you know, that person is kind of like having his focus or her focus time. And that's totally fine. As a manager, I totally accept and respect that. That's their own personal choice. And also I agree with everything that Pedro said. I think that was a great answer to the question overall. Something that I would add from the leadership perspective of the organization as well, that I would make this message as a part of the onboarding. I will write it in the values of the team of the company and make sure that whenever a person is joining, he or she understands that this is the standard at the organization, that we don't expect you to answer immediately. So you as a leader trying to take away that stress as the person is onboarding, I think. And also by showing it by your own example from the leadership, you don't have to, I don't feel necessarily that I have to jump on the message from my team member. I try, but you know, I'm also like, hey, if that's a stressful moment right now, if I'm in a meeting or something, I know that I can reply later, just showing by your own example.
That's great. Actually, yesterday I was having a meeting with a colleague, and so the meeting was scheduled on Zoom, but we were like already chatting in Slack. So we decided let's call in Slack. But another colleague decided to join, and I was like, hey, let's meet in a Google Meet, and all this, you know, all the variations, all the ways how people can actually access to you. That makes me also like a little bit nervous. And Mike, I usually schedule sometimes like interviews in his agenda, and I say, for example, do not disturb and or the lunchtime. I think that's and of course I see this spot, no unavailable spot, and I'm thinking like, okay, maybe I can ask him if I can squeeze it somehow, even if it's like, you know, focus time. It's something that I think that's also like ethics. There should be some ethics for each other, right? So Mike, how do you feel when we recruiters trying to book everything we see in your agenda?
Well, I have like two separate like periods, like a lunchtime and like a dinner time, and like I will be very kind of offended if you like step there, but everything else like I'm fine. And I have like I had a meeting today like at 8 a.m. and like that's better than noon for me. Yeah, but speaking of notifications, yeah, well, same thing here. Like I did it myself and suggest everybody switching from like push model to pull model. When you're not like bombarded with all this notification, you have it like off, and then you pull information when you need it. And even in Slack, there is like kind of sometimes like I know expectation that it's should be momentarily chats and everybody should be online and all that. I don't share that opinion, and I check it well quite regularly, but still like I know maybe like I know well I can come up with some metric there, but I don't expect everybody to reply me right away, and I don't expect anybody to when I send it same thing. And yeah, well, as for email, which we use as well, it's even like lower. I mean, like it's like once a day or something like that, right? And yeah, and I guess the usual mistake and like probably the worst thing you can do is like if you switch from like not remote setup to remote one, trying to bring all this office mode into home, right? And remote work is quite challenging, but there's like good things there, and you should like embrace them. All this in synchronous mode, you can have like, I know, 2 hours during the day to switch to your errands or like, I know, to any other things. And that's why you should not expect like, well, from, I know, 9 to 5, you should be all online, right? And that should be totally fine. And then you can like manage your day and like, I know, all that.
Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. But I saw you also using some tool, clockwise, workwise, worldwise.
Clockwise, yeah, I've tried it, I use it, but then I actually stop using it. But yeah, it's quite nice one, and it can, if everybody using it, it can like kind of try to optimize the meetings through several calendars, and you have like everybody have more like focus time, and it can like book this focus time for you and like all that. But there's like some downsides there, which I personally dislike. That's why I stopped using it. But well, I can recommend everybody trying it at least.
Okay, that's especially when it's a big team. Okay, Natalie, do you have any advice for the notification? How to work with that?
Well, I guess that the best advice would be to find an article or so with the list of different advice and find the best one for you. For me, what was really working is to so in our company, Google Calendar and Slack, they are connected, and I personally try to add everything in my work calendar, including focus hours, including out of office times, including some meetings and even short discussion, even 15 minutes discussions. It helps me to one, really plan my day and see how involved I am in the communication processes and what time should I dedicate to some focused work. And on the other hand, it automatically shows the status in Slack, so that, for example, when I'm busy, when I'm on a meeting, when I'm out of office, it's shown there. And I hope that my colleagues understand and appreciate this notification, this short announcement that, yeah, I'm busy, and probably the next closest meeting is really soon.
Yeah, so we probably have to, thank you so much for your answer. We have to say thank you to Elena. So she needs to jump into another meeting. This is all about, you know, notifications and being on time. So Elena, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Any
thank
tips
you for
before
inviting,
you go?
actually. Yeah, Natalie also is going with me because we are meeting with Hyper Island University and yeah, discussing our educational program. Mm-hmm.
Good luck. And yeah, if you have any tips for the notifications, so please share with us.
Yeah, for notifications, I think the most important one is a culture of company culture. So adding to Nadia's comment regarding leadership team, because I think people can feel the pressure, reply immediately and everything else. But if the company leaders will explicitly explain that if I'm replying in 1 in the morning, that doesn't mean that I'm expecting from my employees to behave the same way. So then you can manage your own notification and schedule, and feel free and don't feel this pressure being an employee and reply immediately after 5 minutes after the notification.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time. Yeah, and enjoy your meeting. I hope that's the rest who are still in the call. So, guys, I hope you have 5 more minutes. Yeah, just to go through a couple of questions. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, good. So, Ivan, maybe you can also share with us from the technical perspective. So, how do you manage the notifications?
Yeah, so in our company, we have certain rules in our remote handbook. It says that you need to reply in 4 hours at most for the Slack notifications, and 8 hours for emails. So that's like a company rule. Also, you need to set the status in your Slack account profile, saying what is your working hours. So it might be from 9 to 6, it might be from 10 to 7. So the person who tries to reach you knows what time is what time is working hours for you. Also, whenever you have assigned to some pull request, we have rules in our teams, like you need to review your pull requests at least once a day. It might be in the morning, it might be in the evening. So at least once a day, you have to review all requests assigned to you. So that's how it works.
Ivan, let me just ask this.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And from the company, you said there are like rules. And what happens if I want to reply to an email within a day? Are there consequences for the employee?
Yeah. Well, let's say you want to reach some person and 5 hours, in 5 hours you don't have any response in Slack, then you might reach his manager, and we have like a list of employees in our Confluence, I guess in some other service. So you can just find the manager, contact him, and ask what happens with the person. I will let me share the link in the chat with the remote handbook. We have an article in our Medium blog about this remote handbook, and maybe you can find anything, well, something useful there.
Thanks. Yeah, this sounds very interesting. Thanks a lot for sharing.
Yeah, just one question, Ivan. What is the distribution of your team? Where are they located, more or less?
It was mainly Minsk in Belarus only, I guess, a year ago. But nowadays we have people in London, in Vilnius, in the United States. So nowadays it's more spread company than it was like a year ago.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite, I think investors are really curious about Flo Health, and it's one of the most popular app for women like ever. Right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, so that's what I read about it as well. But of course, we have to stay connected also with users, right? So we're using different technologies for that. Because users are also overwhelmed with information. I think the same principle applies, right? To use multiple channels like GitLab does. Like you use, I don't know, you create the engineer blog, you do the podcast, you do the conferences. So this is the way. For sure. I would like to ask Nadia one question that was personally for you, actually. Was it any different to join the company that was always remote when other companies were not? So when you joined GitLab, so probably that was the first also remote company, but at the
yes,
same,
I had a mixed experience before that. I was working for Hewlett Packard for almost 5 years as well. I was, how do you say, distributed setup, and I was sitting like outside of the office. So I was like one of those unfortunate people who have been having that feeling that all the stuff happens in the big office and I'm missing everything out. But GitLab is first full remote experience. And I think there is a difference for sure. I think the company that starting remote from the beginning has a privilege in that perspective, because they are making all of the processes, they're building all of the processes to be maybe more inclusive, for example, by documenting everything, because of course you cannot expect that people will be in the same room or in the same building, like hearing or seeing what is happening. So at GitLab, we document everything. Even on the meeting like this, if we would be chatting, like there will be people, like other participants would be taking notes at the same time. This is really useful whenever you are not able to join the meeting because you're in different time zone, or maybe you needed to go to pick up your kid from the school, and you can just come back to the document and visit everything and be up to date, like just as you attended meeting. So those kind of like culture is just built into GitLab. So for us, it's very easy. We starting everything from the assumption that people are not there versus comparing to like we expect everybody to be at the time of the meeting or workshop or whatever. And I think, of course, it's a bit tougher for those companies who've been all the time in same physical location or multiple even offices. They probably have a lot of rituals built around that. So probably, let me assume, but maybe I could be mistaken about some of the companies, they're probably less used to documenting every process or documenting every conversation or doing the meeting recordings, right? Like I've been talking to a lot of people who will be starting important video conversation after like COVID. And like, I see this habit of just forgetting to record. For us GitLabbers, it's just like the first thing, hey, remote is on, then we can go. So I think, this of course teaches you be more structured, again, more organized, and it just helps to be really inclusive for future. So I think there is a privilege, but yeah, those things are not easy to learn, but there is tons of information right now online. GitLab has a great remote manifesto. If you Google GitLab
amazing.
remote manifesto, you'll see a lot of tips there. Also for going from collocated to a remote company.
I don't know, guys, if you've noticed the data. So the moment when the lots of companies in end of February, March, a lot of companies went to work remote, your manifesto was top Google Analytics search requests. So people were really specific, like, okay, so who do we know? So GitLab does that, so we should ask them. So Slack actually was the third one, so it's also quite good. Mike, before you go, I also have one last question for you. It's a personal one. So you do have emoji as your job title on LinkedIn. So I can share, guys, with you later. So just emojis. So this is like the person sitting in front of the computer. So why is that? So people were asking, so what do you do?
Yeah, well, as I said, I'm engineer manager at Miro. And why is emojis there? Basically, well, I kind of last year when I joined, basically last year I had two events, like one really good one and one not that good one. And the really good one, the thing that I joined Miro. Not the good one, as I shared that on LinkedIn. And why? Because like I started to get bombarded with some like recruiters and others trying to not recruit me, but like to offer like, I know, their services to find like talent and all that. And so somehow my phone, actually my private phone, like linked to the internet. And I know some recruiters use some kind of extensions to browsers who kind of augment and extend like LinkedIn profiles and adding like kind of some data from like other like kind of gray sources. And so they open my LinkedIn profile and they see the phone number and they call me like for like all over the world. And
that's scary. Wow.
Yeah.
Shame,
And
shame.
No, I know now it's like only like I know some part of like a small part of the recruiting, but still it's the thing, right? And that's why when I switch like to the emoji. Yeah. Still people call, but well, much less. So basically, yeah.
because they don't know what to call. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. I didn't know. I'm sorry. On behalf of recruiters, I'm really sorry. And and I hope it's going to be fixed somehow as well. So, yeah, guys, I will be honest with you. So you're an amazing crowd. So, and I do have more questions, but if you're also like a little bit later than we expected. So if you will be up to, again, to just gather together and discuss some of the remote work, I will be very happy to get you all on board again, because personally it was a pleasure. So you shared your thoughts, you shared your experience, and I felt like you shared something not only on behalf of the companies, but you actually shared on behalf of yourself. Like we are like, you know, people who need some like bonding, engagement, to stay productive, and yeah, to be to feel appreciated as well. So that's something that we're all trying to do.
Ella, if you don't mind, let me just share something. I'll share here in chat, but of course people can Google it. It's called Burnout Index, and I think this is a good takeaway, regardless if you already work remotely or not, and something that can possibly be the start of a great conversation about how we need to improve the company or our own work, and it's something that I've been trying to do every quarter and share it with my managers, just to tell him what is my burnout level or burnout risk level in this case, that this science-based assessment provides. It's really quick, it's quite easy to do, and I think it's something that people struggle a lot when especially when they transition to remote and all of the notifications and all of that. So I would recommend everyone to do it.
It's so interesting because, but you're not in the Netherlands, right? But you know that burnout in the Netherlands, it's a really big deal. So it's something that is very like people trying to be very careful because there's like a special procedure for that. I wish it will be called differently, but then it will be very comfortable to use it. So Nadia, you heard about it, like in the Netherlands, yeah.
Yeah, but I think, like, I think burnout topic in GitLab is really, we are well aware of that, trying to be, and thanks, Pedro, for raising that. I think for us at GitLab, this doesn't really have a geolocation because we're so multinational, multicultural, but I've heard about that in the Netherlands, the problem, and like, I guess in Nordic countries especially.
Yeah, it's like a whole procedure, special doctor, so it's like a really, really big deal. So, but I think it's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that as well, because it's important to be self-aware as well, and the culture that drives you to try to get into the let's say to make initiative and to ask for. So that should be like that, right? So,
and one thing I would say is I now during the pandemic and here in Portugal we had. I think with most countries, at least in Europe, we had that lockdown period in the spring, and I had family members coming to me that work in very traditional industries, in very traditional companies and organizations, and now they're at home working, and they all said, "I have never worked this many hours and this focused in my life," like, and they're like 50 years old, sometimes 60 years old, and I've never worked so many hours in my life. How can you do it? I mean, I love my work, but I feel like this is too much. And that is the risk of burnout, is that people are not used to this, and remote work is kind of like a big stimulus for burnout. And you need to be aware of that.
Yeah, and also like people are not like sometimes there are people good in the communication and they're building relationships with the managers and they're like hanging out and this kind of thing. So now it's not possible. So this kind of bonding that you had with the grabbing a good cup of coffee and this kind of thing. So boiler discussions, like when you get to the water, like and just this what we miss in all. But yeah, we have to do that as well. And it depends on the home situation. So some people started to say like they're not productive at all because their kids asking for attention, their dogs, cats, and everything. So it's challenging times as well. But I would definitely say that we need to check ourselves how we are doing. And again, I'm a huge fan of GitLab. I think it's a super amazing company, and because this company made these first steps in a remote work, probably that allows and evolve other companies to do that actually. And I'm a huge fan also of the Flo Health and what the company is doing, like helping women to stay healthy and to get like also remote support. I think it's very special as well. We know all that Slack is making the changes all the time and helping to stay productive as well. And so one of the funny things about Slack, I once got the question, can I delete the person from Slack? And it's like one of the developers from Slack, why would you delete your colleague? Just try to talk, like find the communicate. So it's not possible to delete anyone. It's your workplace, it's your colleague. So you just not stop talking to the person. So that's the funny thing as well, like to think about how technologies have some kind of empathy. And of course, Miro also would like to thank guys. They already left, but they're really trying to do their best, and they're growing so fast. It's quite scary as well, like to get 1 million users in 1 month. It's required a lot of also like work and how we're going to handle that. I would like to thank you all again for your time. I'm going to make a recording and I'm going to share the links and for the handbooks that were shared, for the links that we gave also. And Niam, thank you so much for your for joining, for helping me out, to supporting me, because technology is screwing me the whole day.
You were wonderful. You kept your cool. When everything was going wrong, you kept your cool.
Thank you so much. Guys, enjoy your day, and I promise I will get back to you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
Bye.